Well, welcome everyone. Today we're going to be starting the case study. I just want to remind everyone that this is for the opportunity to be able to be a teachable moment. So whether you're going to use this video with your company and really support your employees, or whether it's going to be in a classroom situation, I hope that you're able to use it in order to support and invest in your workforce. So today I'm really lucky to be able to have with me Matt Tournay, and I will have him introduce himself. But before I do, I just have to say, I didn't realize that I was interviewing such a celebrity. I got so many back messages on what a great guy Matt is. And so I'm so grateful to have him and his experience here today. But thank you so much for being here, Matt.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And so just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you actually went through this alignment to become and be where you are right now.
Well, that's a really good question, Corey. I started off early in my shoot. Let me go way back. So my dad was in the housing side of things years and years ago in the 70s, worked his way up from a carpenter's apprentice, and he would take me to work with him once he became kind of a field manager type of thing. And it was kind of an installation of an expectation of work ethic. And his deal was, hey, I'll give you a penny for every nail you straighten on that housing, on all those homes over there. And what it really kind of pushed to me when I would go out there, other than, kind of give me some space, bud, was along the lines of, hey, the details count, and you really need to pay attention to what you're doing. And even though it may seem minuscule in the big scheme of things, it's important in the bigger picture. So, what I think really that taught me was, drive. Don't focus on what exactly your end game is. So when I first got out of college, I didn't know while I was in college, I didn't know if I wanted to do heavy civil, commercial, or residential. It wasn't until I started to kind of, feel those things out. And once I got into those roles, it was more of a like a drive and an interest. Once I found the interest that I was focused on and I got out of college, I found that once my interest was engaged in a certain facet, like heavy civil for this matter, I spent a lot of energy trying to understand and learn and gather the resources around me. What I learned pretty quick was it takes a tremendous amount of discipline. And you really start to fall back on the fact that, well, you know what? This is an investment in my career. I know it's kind of rough right now. Let me figure out how to make the best of this. And what I learned pretty quick was it's how you kind of react to the little curveballs that life throws at you. When I first got out of college, it was a lot of upfront work and a lot of intensity, not a lot of sleeping, and it wasn't a lot of leisure either. So, I took a role with a larger company, Granite Construction at the time, and it wasn't the most lucrative or financially rewarding role at the time, being fresh out of college, but I had totally understood that the exposure that I would get working with them would give me an opportunity to develop some depth in my career, even though it was only a short period of time, three years. What I learned in those 3 years were incredible. And then moving up from that point with moving into the roles with Tykert and subsequently here with Lund, what was consistent over that timeline was just that continued drive. And when you're interested in those things, the drive and the discipline are very complementary. So you're super interested in it. This is something that you're going to do day in and day out. And sometimes what I would put out there to the team, to everybody that's tuning in right now, is that it is a challenge to find the life balance. At the time that I was in pursuit of this, I was single and had a college degree, and that was really it, and a good attitude. As I moved forward in life and developed a family and established my roots, it became more of a challenge to make sure that I was taking into consideration my other obligations outside of the workforce. You can still do all of those things with the balance that you're looking for. The bigger challenge is going to be something called time management, prioritization. That comes with a little bit of maturity into the role later into the season, or later into the years rather. And I'll kind of touch a little bit on that here in a minute. But I think that the biggest thing that got to me was, even though I didn't have all the answers, understand that you don't. First of all, that helps you to grow. Second of all, you move forward and try to resource whatever you can to help you get to the right decision. Some of the dynamics of the growth that I've seen has been, when I first got out of college, we're literally, it was so steep, the learning curve. And I know that everybody has felt that at one point in time or another in their life. When you get into a career path or something for the first time, you don't have all the answers. And there isn't a book that's going to give you all the details and say, go right when you have to go right. You're going to have to source the people around you to understand that, okay, well, it sounds like I need to probably shift over to this direction. And you're going to have to trust in a lot of that backup. And then once you start to have those decisions in front of you, you start to build that confidence and that experience level to where it actually becomes more innate in your own decision-making process. You're still going to collaborate with people. You don't cut that off. There's always going to be somebody that has a little bit more out there than you, and you should be surrounding yourself with those people as often as possible. They help you grow. So when you start to look at, your first, probably, I would say the first 5 to 7 years of my career, I spent a lot of time asking a lot of questions and honestly making a lot of mistakes. When I would go out there and make a decision, and we were out doing some diamond grinding on the freeway, and it was like, oh man, where's the water meter? Things like that pick you up pretty quick, and they burn. And you're okay. Well, we need to find a solution, and it may not be the best one, but we're going to figure out what we have to do to make this work. So you learn from those things as you go, and you source the people around you and leverage them and collaborate the best that you can to make the right decision when you may not have all the answers. Eventually, you start to gather that foundation that helps you make the answers later in your career. So I think a lot of it, like I said, the first 5 to 7 years I spent really kind of trying to immerse myself into things. I had a pretty aggressive take on it to where if I was doing subdivisions for an extended period of time, I kind of knock on the door of my field operations manager and say, hey, it's kind of boring. Is there anything else out there? And he kind of looked at me like, all right, smart ass, here's something else. And so it was kind of like, here's something that you when you're hungry and you're proactive about it and you're driven to learn more, it's not a fear that governs those decisions. It's really more, hey, I want more of this. I'm hungry, right? They gave me an interchange out on Interstate 80 and it went great, but it was a super challenge for me. I had never built an overpass or a bridge for that matter up into that point. It was a great opportunity for me to really get my feet wet in problem solving and things that I don't normally do. From that point on, it really started to expose me to things that I had not seen in a book or actually had the experience back up on it. But what it did was it reinforced that mindset of, okay, well, I don't think I have all the answers. And that's number one. Let me make sure that I go find the people that kind of do. And so you start to source the people around you, whether it's superintendents, subcontractors, confidants in the industry, and lean on that team of people that you have that knowledge base that can help complement the things that you're going to get engaged in. So from there on out, it really started to blossom. I mean, I spent a lot of time and energy putting myself in really uncomfortable positions, uncomfortable intentionally, so that I can learn the things that I can challenge those and grow and learn the things that I hadn't been exposed to otherwise. So there's a lot that goes into that, but probably the biggest thing that I noticed that was the most challenging aspect, especially once you transition past kind of that centralized mindset of how do I get this done myself to how do I get this done with a team. And probably it wasn't until about 10 years into my career that I was fortunate enough to start to work with a larger team. In this case, it was about 8 to 10 people. And we spent a lot of time and energy putting together a larger project. One of the things that really challenged me was how not to go over there and say, oh, just give it to me, I'll do it myself, if they're having a hard time with it. Giving them the space to succeed and have the freedom to make decisions as well, but not so much so that they would be exposed to significant failure. The little things and bumps and bruises that they experience along the way are necessary learning curve things. When the biggest challenge I had was when to engage and kind of how often to engage to make sure that they had the support that they need. Because for the longest time, I felt like the quarterback, the receiver, and also the damn linebacker. So there's a lot that goes into working with the team. And what it did reinforce more than anything was that, and since then, it's 80% people. It will always be about people. The misnomer here is that, especially in the construction industry, there are so many things that seem like you got metrics and numbers and science and all these different test methods. It's still people. It will always be people. And it's how do you motivate somebody to do something on one of their bad days, or with what their capacities are. It's kind of like how do you unlock that combination for that individual, and that takes engagement and understanding how to put that person in a spot where they can succeed. But you're also going to see, okay, well, what's their capacity, and let me push this a little bit. So that's not necessarily a management perspective. This is just my 2 cents. It's more of a leadership and maintaining a balance between management and leadership so that you give them an opportunity to grow and develop, but you don't do it through, TPS reports, if you will. You don't do it through such a structured program to where it's like, hey, here's your checklist. Did you get it done? Why didn't it get done? It's understanding why it didn't get done, right? And trying to engage the individual.
Well, I love all of that, and really the reflection in it. And so I want to talk with you a little bit about that. Before I do, that's a lot of history that you've been through. And I think that that College of Hard Knocks is really important for us. But just for people out there that want to understand, how do you become a vice president of a company starting so young? Can you give a condensed timeline of kind of what that looked like? You talk 5 to 7 years, but what would give someone an idea of how long to expect to stay in a particular position? And for you personally, did that go from, field engineer into construction manager into operations manager? Like, what did that look like?
Good question. So it was, and I'll keep it as short as I can. It was a succession of roles. And I think on the field side of things, I was pretty vocal about, hey, I want more, I need more. There was a couple of times when I actually raised my hand and said, you've got me as an assistant project manager, but I have no project manager. Who am I assisting? Aside from that, it boils back to the interest. So I would say the timeline's going to vary by the individual, not to go, opaque on this, but in their drive, and the individuals want to go get and be hungry and go take on these roles. My specific situation, once I started to give a lot of interest into it, I was very excited at taking on new opportunities. So I think that was recognized pretty early on. And then it literally complemented my pursuit. There weren't a whole lot of conversations that I had where it was, hey, I need this, or I need to be moved up. It was literally, hey, we see that you're having an impact outside of your current role, and we'd like to ask you to move up. And that was all the way through the senior project manager role that I took here, all the way through, dealing with the rise at Tykert, getting to where I'm at right now. Literally, one of the things that I noticed was I was comfortable and interested once I took the operations manager role, super excited about engaging the team and helping them to succeed. And then I started to notice that there were things that I was doing that could probably help estimating as well as accounting. And the company started to recognize that, hey, look, there's probably some other things that he can lend to us that bring value. Would you be interested in doing this? I said, yeah, I'll be interested in doing that. Let's try to understand what that looks like and how to develop that role better. Does that kind of address what you're asking?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just know that usually there's such a distinct difference between site work and office. And so the skills that you're using out on the site show and prove that you're a leader out there. And that's usually kind of what gets you noticed of then somebody who wants to move you into a management position. But I know sometimes that skill set transition can be different. I also love what you just got done talking about, because I think in construction, we're so set into traditional roles that we don't recognize that there is a lot of collaboration that happens amongst all of the roles that could end up really being a valuable asset when you're able to include some of that site with office to get the full picture of what happens on a project site. So, what was that skill set transition like for you? It sounds like it went very natural, but then it was really you that identified when things weren't clicking or when you might have needed to transition. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, there was a lot. So I think more than anything in this, it's a behavioral thing. You have to have the ability to inflect. And so when you're looking at things in causation and looking at, schedules or looking at just operational performance, what happened, what's going on, hey, this worked really well, this may not have. And it's not necessarily a CPM schedule or a forecast that you had. It's very much like for me now, it's more of a team performance and how is the team performing and how do I engage that? So I start to kind of put and prioritize my energy and my focus based on the performance of the team at this point. And kind of couple that with some other metrics that we look at the company's financial levels and how are we doing? Is this something that we can pull a lever on or not?
Oh, fantastic. Well, I appreciate that because it's so important for people to kind of get an idea, because when you're first entering the construction industry, sometimes seeing what you want is clear, but understanding the steps of how to achieve that or get there may not be. And although I can see that there are very traditional ways of being able to move up the ladder, what I'm hearing from you is that it really is about resilience, making sure that you jump in there, you're ready to work. So it's all about mindset and really about purpose, which drives passion, which provides you the energy to have to work really hard during some of those really long hours that come early in your career.
Yeah, I think couple that with self-advocacy and making
Okay.
sure everybody understands that is a huge push. It's not that you're trying to sell yourself. It's just that, hey, look, I'm anxious to do more for you. And I bring a value to the table. I'd love to learn more. Can you show me
Mhm.
more? Right.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, we're going to jump into a challenge that you see in the industry so that we can talk a little bit about what some entry level people might have to expect. I'll do the arm wave.
There we go.
Good. Glad to see that Len's beautiful new office building has energy efficiency components to
Yeah, it
it.
doesn't think I'm in here. So
So, if you could just tell us what your challenge is today that maybe happened in the past. Hopefully, it's not on a project that you and I had to negotiate, because I know many of the times that you and I had to butt heads, I was not in a good position. So I just had to be negotiating what I had to support my client, even if I didn't believe in it. So,
I tell you what, even though it was a challenging conversation at times, it was incredible to work with somebody that actually took a very professional take on it. So that's how you get to solutions anyways, de-escalate, de-energize, and move forward. Current challenges right now are trying to be far enough ahead of the team to anticipate where to make adjustments before. So I guess the summary would be try to stay out of reactionary mode, right?
Mhm.
So try to be as proactive as you can, as transparent as you can, so that we can understand when to make a change before it's all hands on deck fire drill. And try to make sure that we transition as early as we can. Now, that comes with a lot of communication, a lot of collaboration. Financials, monthly meetings. We have both weekly and monthly meetings, and focus through agendas just mainly on how's everybody doing, where are we at. Here's an update to the team. Transparency, I think, is probably one of the bigger things that helps us to read the team and also communicates back to them their value add. So we get a pretty balanced perspective on it. And this goes back to the decentralized command comment I was making earlier about Jocko's book with respect to the book Dichotomy of Leadership. That essentially is like, hey, you're only as strong as your team. And the best way to engage them, at least in my 2 cents, is to make sure they understand the value they bring. Number one. Number two, if I'm asking them to take a role on, I also want them to understand the next role they're going to be taking. So if I've got a project engineer that is aiming to be a project manager someday, I'm still going to be asking that individual project manager related questions, even though it stretches them. So getting more than one set of eyes on the prize is probably the biggest focal point right now, so that we can anticipate the issues before they come up.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, because sometimes we can't really appreciate what other people in the office are doing until we're sitting in that seat. And then when we're sitting in that seat in reflection, we can see how important our role was to support that individual that's in that seat. I often use an example of superintendents who want to move up into upper management. But when they grab an invoice from Home Depot, they stick it in the door of their pickup truck.
Yeah.
And then when they become a project manager, they wonder why they're getting all these wrinkled invoices that aren't coded yet. And so if you really understand how you're supporting upstream and appreciate that that might be you in that seat one day, then it really does do a trickle down that keeps everybody effective and efficient. But, I'm going to ask it. I hate it. I don't want to learn it. But how is AI contributing to this collaboration of the way that you guys are using data and really forecasting out what's happening on these projects?
That's a good question, right? So, especially since it's relatively recent over the past couple of years, this is kind of lends itself to the generational thing that was with computers, to be honest with you, or phones for that matter. The AI component, there's still a lot of discovery going on for us right now. I was engaged in a couple meetings this week regarding how to utilize AI, how to leverage it, where to leverage it. I see some great opportunities in it with development. More than anything, at this point, I know there's so many other things that it's going to lend to the industry across not just construction, obviously. But there's a lot of, like, a good example is workflows. I mean, normally when we do a process workflow, it might take a number of individuals working together, and we still have the collaboration in spite of this, but it would take them 3 weeks, in some cases months, to go through it. And that's a collaborative necessity to go through it and work through it every week and so on. The workflow process with AI is pretty well streamlined. You still cannot keep it as a backbone, just like anything else out there. It's a tool, right? So understand that it's a tool, and understand there still needs to be a level of human engagement into this thing so that we can actually verify and check that this thing's actually doing what we're asking it to do. And then literally a lot of the rough draft stuff that I've done here recently and then taking it to the team is like, okay, well, here's a draft. What do you think? So it kind of streamlines some of it, and then you actually get the format and the structure to some degree, and then you can tweak it from there. The other things that I've seen is probably summarizing documentation. And, like, for instance, it used to take me forever to go through certain things, a lot of footwork, a lot of time, researching online for specifications or standards. Something as simple as that, what does it call out for in Caltrans Section 19 when I'm dealing with grading operations? What challenges do I have with a 2020 Caltrans spec, whatever it is? I type in that information and give it enough to chew on. It'll come back with a very great summary of, hey, look, here's what's out there. Here's what you consider. I would go dig over here, right? Yeah. And so it kind of gives you to the end game pretty quick. Those things right now seem to be the biggest time gains that I've seen from them. Like I said, there's so many other things that are out there, and we're actually actively looking at how to engage it beyond that. Financials, how to integrate in with Power BI, all the other things that go with it, in the dashboarding and stuff like that. We currently use a system that works for us and has for about 8 years with dashboarding and stuff, but it's very manual. So how do you streamline that so that it's automated and all you're doing is focusing more into what Stephen Covey might call quadrant 2 stuff, right? Important, but not urgent, right? Yeah. Stuff that's more long-term goal planning type stuff that allows you the time to not be reactive and actually focus on the growth of the business.
I do know it's one of the biggest challenges that companies have is, you're trying to make your company more efficient, but you begin chasing the squirrel. And so there's a lot of money invested. And once you get stuck into a software, it's really hard to change because you've invested all of this money in it. But I've heard that Airtable is going to be kind of the collaborator or bridge that's going to be able to help keep the cost down until people can really decide what they want to do or where they want to go. But I've been loving teaching my students how to be able to do things like upload all of their daily reports and then be able to bullet point a summary report of the progress of the project. But I spoke to one of my students last night because I do have a couple of students that work with Lund Construction, and I'm just always so incredibly proud of them, but also the growth that Kevin has created with Lund Construction over the years. And one of the things that we were talking about last night is his amazement of the flexibility of Lund Construction to be able to see change that needs to happen in order to be able to continue evolving with the construction industry. And one of those was bringing estimators and operations together in more of a collaborative effort in being able to forecast costs and that type of thing. That is a huge challenge, right? Because if we don't estimate accurately and correctly, then we don't make money. So you had also mentioned how they had seen multiple talents and skills in you that caused you to start branching or umbrella over several different departments. So can you tell me what modern construction might look like where we're not just stuck in one particular lane?
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. Let's see here. Let me see if I can hit that point. So I would say you have to kind of look outside the box and consider, like I was saying, what kind of proximal impacts are you having on, in this case, it might be estimating, it might be accounting. What can you possibly help? It doesn't necessarily mean that I am an accountant by any stretch of the imagination, or for that matter, an estimator. My background is in operations, but if you continue to look at how do I support the other side, a good example would be, like you had mentioned, we bring us estimating and operations team together frequently. And that was very much in the time, and when I joined the team at 15, 16, was a lot easier to do at a smaller level and smaller scale, because it was kind of like a circle of life thing, if you will. Operations is drying up on grading. Hey, let's go get some grading work, and maybe we'll get a little more aggressive on it this time to make sure we get the backlog we need to keep them rolling. Once you start to think out of the box and what the collateral impacts are, you start to realize, okay, wait a minute, this is bigger than just me going and getting a project knocked out. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, there's only so much land, right? And you guys are civil contractors. Once things are built on it, it seems like it would be tough to diversify or to transition what it is that you're doing. And so I can see that your plethora of skills over a number of different areas may have to kind of collaborate and combine.
So let me take that down a different path then. So one of the things that what's allowed us to grow is collaboration on the team again, but having the transparency and visibility to understand where we're performing and what's out there, right? So some of the metrics that we track, we try to stay close within Sacramento area, about an hour is what we try to use. But we are willing to venture out depending on the opportunity. And we've done that on a number of occasions. We were up at Oroville when the dam had a challenge in 17, and we've been down as far as Yosemite and stuff like that. The things that we looked at to give us that visibility are categorizing different market sectors. So subdivisions, commercial work, joint trench is a part of the company we really wanted to grow. Here we go again. Sorry, folks. Let's see if it does it. Come on.
It's okay. Movement.
Good for another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So, so identifying the different market sectors we want to shoot for, and then we keep that in alignment through estimating and operations. So how are we doing with subdivisions? What's our portfolio look like? We're at 40% subdivisions volume by revenue this year. How are we performing at that? How's our profitability and our return? And then we track that, not necessarily just on operations, but like I said, in estimating, one of the metrics that we had tracked for many years, and we're actually really spinning this out and dissecting it now, is opportunities. So our pipeline, how much are we seeing across the board? We'll put what we might call an engineer's estimate, because not all of it's going to have one. We'll put an estimate, kind of rough order magnitude of all the projects that we see, whether we bid them or we don't. And those come together as a large number. And then when we start to look at, okay, how much are we bidding? So hypothetically, we may bid on an average $400 or $500 million a year. We may see 700 to 800 in opportunities. And that's essentially, we can filter that down to say, okay, well, 700 to 800, $1 million in our local area of opportunities, and we're only bidding half of it. So things look like they're pretty strong right now. But let's take a look at the profitability of procurement and how are we doing with those things. So I guess what I'm getting at is it's almost like what you might call kind of elevation management a little bit, where sometimes you're going to drill down into a level of detail where you're going to be boots on grade, looking at procurement profitability based on volume. And then you're going to back out and say, okay, overall, though, do we have enough opportunities out here to sustain our growth over year and with what our current little footprint is an hour away. Recently, we've looked at the housing market and seeing things kind of do what they're doing, which they typically do. It's not normal. I mean, so they're about every 10 or 11 years, you see a cycle, and we're kind of going through it now. So we start to look at, okay, well, now let's start to spread into some more public works stuff. And let's start to diversify the portfolio to anticipate the sustainable growth. I mean, it may not be growing in public works. It may be growing, or I'm sorry, in housing at that point, maybe in public works. Housing is going to remain strong. Okay, what does our next 3 years look like, right? So then we start to look at, do we need to start looking outside of our 1 hour little envelope and grow beyond that to sustain that growth? That will inevitably be the case when we start to look at, 5 years out, which is kind of what we're focused on right now. The next year is kind of planned out for the most part. And then 4 years beyond that to give us a little bit of a trajectory and say, okay, well, here's our target. Can we do that in Sacramento, or do we need to go to Chico or go as far south as, Fort Irwin or, Bakersfield or something like that? That helps us to better understand how we need to diversify to not only, keep the company moving and growing, but also giving opportunities to the team and giving them an opportunity to go and advance in their career.
Well, fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and just stop here for a second to give anyone the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have for Matt. He has obviously extensive experience that we can tap into. And while they're getting their questions ready, Matt, I just want to ask you, I heard that you say how important, purpose and passion is, and, making sure that you're out there really fighting it for yourself and asking the big ask and putting yourself out there. But what is the hardest thing about your job today?
The hardest thing about my job today, that's a great one. Well, I think I touched on it earlier, and I'm gonna reiterate it, and I'm probably gonna be a broken record. It's trying to support the team the best that I can, making sure that I'm applying myself in the right areas, but that comes with full transparency and visibility so that I can engage where I think I need to. And a lot of times that results in me trying to be as proactive as I can in talking to our department managers, but also our teams. How you doing today? What's happening? I'll be honest with you. It's tough to do sometimes with the available time that you have, but it's trying to look at the metrics and get out there and engage the team. Biggest thing, short, is make sure I'm as ahead of them as I can to prevent the pitfalls that may be coming up for them and for the company. Help them out more than anything.
So it feels like I hear a lot about some discouragement about the upcoming entry level of workforce that we have coming in, that being able to find that kind of purpose and passion might be difficult or tough to be able to inspire and motivate. But I also believe that the reputation of your company and the role model of the individuals who are in those upper management positions, supporting their teams with excitement and, hard hours and hard work, that you're the first one in or the last one out, but also recognizing how valuable balance is to company culture like Lund Construction. How are you seeing or feeling the workforce right now, and how do you support women coming into the construction industry and young entry-level college individuals who are looking for opportunities in construction?
Honestly, the approach that we take is we try to eval mainly on performance. There's folks that come in that, hey, look, they've already got a family established in some cases, and it's, I came to this company with Lund Construction years ago with the mindset of finding a better balance and really trying to find that opportunity where I can go to a football game with my son, or I can go see my daughter at gymnastics. And we try to keep that regardless of the tenure with anybody that joins the team. In fact, there's quite a few folks that are here today that are prospering and doing incredibly well that don't have a degree in construction management. They have the drive. The intention of the team ad, let me back up just a quick second. When we go through the hiring process, and we've got somebody that's coming out of school or somebody that's been doing this for a little bit, the resume speaks one side of it. The other side of it is how do you fit the culture and how do you fit the team? We have a culture here with Lund that we try to really super embrace. that it is a family-oriented company. There is balance for family as well as for the demand for work. And there's going to be offsets. There's going to be opportunities for that person to take a breath, but there's also going to be a demand there. And if there's something that comes up, is the great thing about it is that, hey, look, I'm in a pinch here and I need some help. I've got too much that I can't get it all done right now. Okay, well, normally from across the aisle, or whether it's estimating, operations, project engineers, helping PMs, there are all opportunities for growth. So we all reach out and kind of, hey, what can we do? In fact, I can remember not so long ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago, where it was just, we were slammed and it was like, okay, I'll go run that job. So it's trying to find balance by actually, working with the team. I don't see it being specific to people that have been here before. But if you've got somebody that joins brand new, coming out of college, or interns for that matter, we're probably going to lean on them pretty good to understand what it is that's causing their challenges, and then say, okay, I got some ideas. Why don't we try these things? Because all of those are great growth opportunities, regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah, I'm a college professor, so it's important that I support formal education. I was having that conversation with your student yesterday, and they're like, I'm done once I get this, AA. And I said, there's no race to getting a degree. And typically upper management will want to see something like that. So taking one class a semester isn't going to kill you. And you're already used to taking classes, and you should always be learning and exercising both sides of your brain anyway. Mm-hmm. But I also believe in those companies who recognize the power of the individuals who've been loyal and committed to them and have raised up through the ranks and really have been able to prove themselves, and knowing that they may not have had the degree in hand, but maybe some personal growth opportunities that they took some courses or certifications along the way. So I think that all of that is really important. It always makes me mad when I see companies say that a degree is required for an upper management position when they advertise, because when it's required, it makes people feel as though there's no other option. So you may lose out on being able to interview that person, even though they may have 15 years of experience, simply because they see the requirement of a degree.
Lund Construction has done so much to recognize people with and without degrees. Mm-hmm. In fact, we have a couple of folks that are in upper management right now that, like I mentioned, one of them does not have a degree and the other one doesn't have a degree. So, the difference there is honestly the drive and the performance. Their self-advocacy and wanting to perform, be a part of the process, not divisive. And we do the best that we can to really find that individual's good fit. Because let's face it, if you have a stellar resume and you just really aren't the great fit culture-wise, it's going to stand out pretty hard, because we do operate and collaborate as a team. And the expectation is that if there's something going on with, project manager number one, he may need some help. We expect that you're going to go collaborate and help out. And that's usually a management call. Hey, look, what do we have to do? A good example is right now, there's a lot of mud pies out there right now. The rain's hit a little bit. Projects have slowed down just a bit. Temperatures have dropped. So paving's a little bit of a challenge, work windows. And so a lot of the operation team lends its time to the estimating side to help them continue to procure.
Yeah. So Jose has a burning question. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring this out to you, even though we really shouldn't talk politics if we want to be able to, keep the calm and professional atmosphere that we're working on, because it can get pretty heated. I myself may or may not like some of the things that Trump says or does, but the team that he's surrounded himself with and how he's allowed them to work individually in their own paths, to me, has been a masterclass. I think it's been really amazing. Whether you like what they're doing or not isn't the point. It's about seeing how it's organized and how it is structured and being able to model that. But he's wondering how the political structure has changed construction or the construction industry, and what you think about that.
Wow. Okay. Let me dig into that one. So I think historically the construction industry has been a lot of type A folks, which tend to be more conservative than they are otherwise. Mm-hmm. If it's not broke, don't fix it. or I'll let you know if I'm not screaming at you, you're doing a good job. As you evolve, and what I've seen is there's a little more balance, I guess is the right word, coming into it. And what that's done is it's really forced us to really look at, okay, how do you communicate? It's changed the dynamics of communication and motivation. I'm not going to get into who's liberal at what point, who's conservative. All I'm going to say is that the message we delivered is going to be different based on the individual, even more so now than it ever has been. When you used to scream at a crew, and myself included, when I would be the receiver of those messages, it was like, okay, I get the point. Let's go this way now. This is a little different, and you're going to have to accommodate different mindsets, different motivator triggers. In fact, what we've done over the years, here we go, bear with me. So what we've done over the years in the past 10 that I've been here has focused really on personality profiles and leveraged ourselves against PIs or Working Genius, a number of different things that are out there, the DISC, the Tillman, things like that kind of give us a better read on new hires to say, okay, well, this individual it thinks in this way, in this pattern. And it's not going to tell you it's not going to answer all the questions, right? It's going to tell you, generally speaking, what forest to go chop trees down in, though. So you're going to know that this individual might be one of those folks that just kind of wants to talk and wonder about, hey, what if we did this or what if we did that? And you're going to pair them up with somebody that is just a doer, a worker bee, let's go get it done, knock it out, all hands on deck type of a thing. You're going to want to make sure they understand kind of how that needs to roll and the expectations are spread accordingly. So yeah, political side of things, I'm going to dodge that one best I can. But what I am going to say is that with those political beliefs, bring in mindsets that we have to understand so that we can communicate and all of us get to the end game. Because let's face it, if I'm saying that we need to do 100,000 tons of paving for this season, I'm going to have to convey that in a way that's relatable to the individual and say, hey, here's how I think we're going to do it. What do you guys think the challenges are?
Absolutely. And the common goal always being the successful completion of a project. And I think that the most important thing to see from any kind of political atmosphere is that when you focus on the positive or focus on what you want to achieve versus focusing on the negative or the destruction of something else, you're going to end up what you focus on. And so it doesn't really even have to be liberal or conservative. It just has to be people of the same desire to complete it. And also in construction, knowing that there's different ways to do the same thing. So it doesn't always have to be my way.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, that lends itself to partnering with clients and across the board. When you can look at things, dynamically different and say, what if we did it this way? Well, that'll never work. Okay, tell me why. So you start to ask those questions. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that those things have gotten us partnerships and relationships that have given us negotiated opportunities with contracts and future work because they know we're looking out for their best interest.
Yeah. No, I really believe that as much as I love being a teacher, we're all teachers, and educating in that moment gives someone the power to be able to make a choice that they can then live with and be happy with. So Matt, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I know that there was a lot of anticipation and excitement with you being on today, and that we talked about maybe doing this again sometime because you've got a lot of knowledge to be able to share. And I just certainly appreciate you sharing it with us today and the audience.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So I just want to remind everybody that we are getting ready to move into November. And so in November 17th,